Let's talk about one of the biggest risks to your home. And here's a hint. It's not something that makes a lot of noise. It's a silent threat, one that can cause an incredible amount of damage before you even know it's there.
So if I asked you what the single most destructive force your home could face is, what would you say? You're probably thinking fire, right? Or maybe a big storm. And yeah, those are huge deals for sure, but they're not the most common culprit.
The real invader is a lot sneakier. It's something that can creep in totally unnoticed, hiding out behind your drywall, seeping under your floors, and lurking in those dark crawl spaces you never look at.
Yep, it's just plain old water. It seems harmless, but get it in the wrong place and it becomes this unbelievably destructive force. So let's really dive into how this all works.
Okay, so how does this silent invader even get inside? Well, the entry points are way more common than you'd probably guess, and they range from these big, dramatic failures to tiny, hidden drips.
And believe me, the list is long. We're talking about everything from a pipe bursting in a deep freeze to a slow, steady leak from your dishwasher hose. And it's not just your plumbing. A nasty storm could peel shingles off your roof, or the tank on your water heater could just give out one day and flood the whole basement.
Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Your local environment, it plays a huge role in all this. For instance, if you live somewhere with heavy clay soil, water doesn't drain away from your house. It just sits there, pooling against your foundation, looking for a way in. Then you add some high humidity to the mix, and you've basically created the perfect recipe for moisture to get trapped inside and cause some really big problems. The second water gets in, you are officially on the clock. This isn't a problem that waits for you. The damage doesn't just happen once, it gets worse and worse with every single hour that goes by.
I want you to remember this number, 48. It is probably the most critical number in the entire world of water damage restoration.
That's right, just 48 hours. In a humid area, that's all it takes for mold spores, which, by the way, are pretty much always in the air around us, to find a nice damp spot and start to grow. And that is why speed is absolutely everything.
This timeline really shows you how fast things go downhill. I mean, within minutes, water is already soaking into your walls and subfloors. A few hours later, you can actually see the damage. Materials start to swell up and warp. Then you hit that critical 48-hour mark, and now you're not just dealing with water, you're dealing with mold. And if it's left for days or weeks, the actual structure of your house, the wood itself, can start to rot away.
Okay, so what if the worst happens? What does a real professional response even look like? I'll tell you, it's not just about bringing in a shop vac and some fans. It's a scientific, multi-step process that's designed to stop and reverse the damage.
It all kicks off with emergency extraction, getting all that standing water out as fast as humanly possible. Then comes the most critical part, the structural drying. This means huge industrial-strength dehumidifiers and air movers that are designed to literally pull the moisture out of the building materials. And then finally, you have the restoration phase, which is all about getting your home back to how it was before, rebuilding and replacing whatever got wrecked.
Now you might hear this term thrown around, IICRC certified. Here's what that actually means. It's basically the organization that sets the gold standard for the restoration industry. A technician with this certification knows the science of drying. It's called psychrometry, and they follow proven steps to make sure the job gets done right, which prevents bigger problems like hidden mold down the road.
And this chart illustrates that science perfectly. See, professionals don't just guess when something's dry. They use sensitive moisture meters to hit very specific targets. Look at this. Wood framing has to be below 15% moisture. Drywall has to be below 1%. This is the only way to be absolutely sure that the risk of mold or rot has been eliminated. If you ever have to go through this, you're going to hear a bunch of industry terms. Knowing what they mean is really key to navigating the whole process, especially when you're talking to your insurance company.
Here are the two big ones, remediation and restoration. And honestly, the analogy on the slide is perfect. Think of remediation as the emergency first aid. It's stopping the bleeding by getting the water out and getting everything dry. Restoration, on the other hand, is the complete recovery. That's the rebuilding, the repairing, putting everything back together so it's whole again.
Now for the million-dollar question. Is any of this covered by insurance? Well, the good news is that most standard policies do cover damage that is sudden and accidental. And that's the key phrase right there, sudden and accidental. That's the magic password for insurance companies.
But, and this is a really big but, there are some major exceptions. That slow drip behind the toilet that you ignored for 6 months? Yeah, probably not covered. And damage from actual floods, like a river overflowing, requires a totally separate flood insurance policy. The real takeaway here is to act fast and keep up with your home maintenance.
All right, so we've looked at the causes, the crazy fast timeline, and the solution. So what's the one thing you absolutely need to take away from all of this?
It really just boils down to this. Every single minute you wait, the damage gets worse and the fix gets more expensive. Acting fast and calling in pros who have the right gear and the scientific know-how, that is the only way to truly stop the damage in its tracks and protect your biggest investment.
And that just leaves us with one last thing to think about. We've seen how quickly a tiny leak can turn into an absolute disaster. So, what's your plan? Knowing who you would call and what you would do before it happens could end up making all the difference in the world.